Okay, so I'd just like to share some basic care tips with you for how to keep some indoor houseplants happy and healthy. This video is kind of directed at anybody who might be new to keeping plants in their house, especially tropical plants. These are just some basic tips and guidelines that you are going to want to keep in mind when you bring your new plant friends home. To begin with, I thought I would just start by giving you some examples of some of the plants that I like that I find that are really easy to care for, that can take some abuse from time to time and still be healthy. So if you are new to getting plants and you're worried that you might have a black thumb or you haven't had much luck in the past, I suggest you start with these plants instead of some of the more exotic ones that are a bit more touchy and a bit more sensitive. So first off is snake plant, and I'm going to put some pictures up so you guys get the visual for what it is. So first off is snake plant, and I don't know if you can see it here, but this is what it is. And they're also a great plant because what they do is they divide, so basically they push out another plant right next to the old existing one. And they're really easy to turn one plant into two because all you do is you take it out of the pot, basically take a knife or a big pair of scissors, cut them under the soil where the roots connect them, and then just pot them up in just two separate pots. So this is a great plant in that sense because you really can buy one, and in not too long you'll have a house full of snake plants. Same goes with the second plant that I'm going to suggest you start with, which is a spider plant. And this is another plant that's really easy to care for. It can take low to high levels of light. If you forget to water it once in a while, it can tolerate drought, just like snake plant. And this is another plant that produces many offspring. So just like snake plant, you'll soon have a house full of these spider plants if you do decide to repot some of the offsets that they put off. And I'll put up a picture of the offsets too, so you can see what I mean. Those are really simple. You just cut them off, put them in some soil, and you have a new plant. I've had one in my house for about less than a year, and I've literally got, I'm not kidding, about 14 separate plants now, all throughout the house. So. And another plant that you might want to start with if you're worried about killing plants is an ivy, so a Baltic ivy. This is another very hardy plant and perfect for beginners. So those are my top three. Feel free to experiment, but those are some really hardy plants. They're really beautiful plants, and something to keep in mind too, that all three of the plants that I just mentioned are on NASA's top 10 list for air purifying plants. They've been shown to really reduce the amounts of benzene and just a ton of different toxic chemicals that are present in most homes, from off-gassing, from carpets, furniture, etc., etc. So that's a great place to start with those three. Now, some other basic tips I'm going to run down with you right now. First, I'll talk about watering. How to tell when to water, how to avoid overwatering or underwatering. Now, this is going to take some practice on your part. Really, what you're going to have to do is, when you first get the plant, okay, you water it and it's completely saturated. You're going to want to pick up the pot and try to make a mental note of how much that pot weighs when it's first watered, so when it's full of water. Okay, take a note of how heavy it is. Now what you're going to want to do is kind of keep an eye on it over the next few days. Once it's fully dried out, pick it up and take note of that weight too. So notice the weight difference between when it's freshly watered and when it's dried out, because that for me is the best way to know when it's time to water your plants. that's how I do it. It's foolproof, and it's a great method. I just go around, really pick up my pots. I can tell that they're light and it's time for some more water. So it's really your best bet when it comes to trying to figure out how much to water. So you know, if your pot's too heavy, or if your pot's still heavy, don't water it. You don't want to overwater plants, because overwatering is worse than underwatering in most cases, especially with these plants that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. Because what happens is when you overwater, the roots don't get enough oxygen, there's not enough air in the soil, and basically they suffocate. So, you know, it's going to take a bit of practice, but honestly, as long as you are trying, it's very simple, and you'll see what I mean. It's quite simple. Okay. So another thing to consider is what type of pot you're going to be using. There's clay pots, and then there's plastic pots. Those are the two big choices. For me personally, I really prefer clay pots for several reasons. Firstly, they just look great. So as far as aesthetics go, I think they're much better than plastic pots. So, and if you're going to be filling your house with plants like I have, you really want to try to make it look as good as possible. So clay pots, I highly recommend them. Having said that, clay is porous, and you'll find yourself having to water more often with clay pots than with plastic. But you know, if you have the time and you think you'll be able to be dedicated enough to be able to do that, it's definitely worth it, because clay pots, another benefit of them being porous is that the oxygen can really reach the root system, and that really does help the plants out quite a bit. Benefits of plastic are they're obviously cheaper, and obviously you won't have to water as much. So you know, you're going to have to decide for yourself what's best for you. Okay, now another extremely important tip. Please don't forget this, keep this in mind. Not many people know about it or do it, and that is your water that you're going to be using to water your plants with. If it's coming out of the tap, you need to make sure it's going to be sitting in whatever container you're going to use for at least 24 hours. What this does is it ensures that the chlorine is able to evaporate before you water your plants. Chlorine is very harsh on plants. They do not do well with chlorinated water, so this is really a must. And a lot of people that have maybe had trouble in the past with keeping their plants healthy and alive, there's a good chance it could just be because you weren't letting your water sit and your plants got basically destroyed by chlorine. So that's a big one. So keep jugs. What I do is I have a couple big jugs, and I just fill them up in the bathtub and let them sit in my bathroom until it's time to use the water. Okay, another tip, as far as fertilizer goes and soil, for me my absolute preference is organic soil. I like this for several reasons. First off, I always encourage people to really try to buy everything, food, fertilizer, anything you can if you can afford it. Buy it organic, at least natural. But as far as plants go, it's preferable because what happens is with organic soil and organic fertilizers, it's nearly impossible to over-fertilize. As opposed to with synthetic fertilizers, it's very easy to over-fertilize, and it's just a little bit too much, you can burn your plant and basically kill it just from adding a bit too much synthetic fertilizer. So for your soils and your fertilizer, strongly recommend organic, and it's healthier for everybody. It's better for your environment, it's better for your plants. It's just good all around, so go organic. Okay, and another thing is, as far as pests go in the soil, you do want to buy bagged soil. You don't want to go out to your backyard and use what you have in your backyard. For several reasons. First off, it's not going to be the right composition of soil. Most of these plants are tropical, and they require, you know, fast draining sandy soils. And majority of people who are coming across this video, probably in North America, don't have that type of soil. It's going to be more clay and less well draining. Another big thing you want to avoid with using just soil from your backyard is it's going to have lots of different bugs in it. So not only will you get bugs in your house, but you might have bugs that like to eat your plants. So it's obviously not good. Another thing to remember is keeping your plants healthy is if you do have plants that sometimes have leaves drop off them and fall into the clay pots, you're going to want to make sure that you keep your soil clean. So if you have any debris, any pieces of the plants that fall into your soil, take it out, because that's a great, you know, fungi and mold love to grow on old dead leaves. And it's also a good place to harbor insects for them to lay their eggs, etc., etc. So keep it clean, and that will go a long way too. Okay, and my final tip is really just, you know, if you're getting plants, you know, you have to be interested, and you have to be kind of excited about getting them, because that's where a lot of your care is going to come from, is your love for these plants. So, you know, you really do have to care about the outcome of the plants and the well-being of them to be able to properly care for them. So it's kind of a funny tip, but just love your plants, and you know, because if you don't, you're going to forget about them, you're going to miss waterings, you're not going to be caring for them the right way, and you're going to be throwing your money out the window by buying plants and having them last you know, a month or so before they just can no longer stand the poor conditions you're providing them. So, and the other thing with that is, that ties in, just take, you know, a few minutes, type in whatever plant that you bought on the internet, and either write down or just keep a few of the tips in your head on how to care for these specific plants, you know. So just the basics, look it up, find out if it, you know, if indirect or if direct sunlight is harmful to it, you know, if it doesn't like drafty areas, keep it away from drafty areas. If you keep the soil drier than wetter, just the basics. It's really simple. You just need to, a little bit of care goes a long way. So take a little bit of time, look into the plants, and you should be fine. A lot of people seem to make it more complicated than it is. It's so incredibly simple. I've got about 60 plus plants in my house, and I really give them all the same basic care. It really, honestly, a little bit goes a long way. It's not complicated. All you have to do is basically be consistent, and that's it. Okay, so to wrap up the video, I'll just talk about some benefits of having houseplants. If you're still on the fence about it, I don't know how you could be. I'm kidding. I love plants. But some of the benefits, obviously the ones that you know about that I've already touched on, they really help to clean your air. That's very important, because many studies have been done showing that indoor air is many times more polluted than outdoor air, and that's just a no-brainer. It makes sense. You have cleaning products, you have all these different furniture and carpets and paints that are constantly off-gassing. So, you know, I think for that reason alone, just for health reasons, people should have at least a few plants in their house to purify the air, clean the air. Also, it provides you with more oxygen. That's great for winter too, when your doors are closed and your windows are closed constantly. And you know, there's a buildup of CO2 from us breathing, and it's nice to get the balance from the plants again. Another thing, obviously, is aesthetically. They can be very beautiful additions to your home, and for your mood. You know, it's been shown that people who are given scenes of nature, it really improves their mood. It calms them down and helps them feel better. That's probably why when you go to dentists and hospitals and stuff like that, they will have different paintings of nature scenes or even plants in the waiting room or whatnot. So they do have an effect on your overall feeling, your overall consciousness, really. And the last thing, this is more so just kind of how I see things, but it's also been shown that every living organism does have an energy that gives off. It's been shown that our hearts emit an electromagnetic field that is around us. You can see it from pictures of people's auras. I forget the name of the type of the photography that they use for that. But there's also been the same thing done with plants, and you can see the same energy field around them. And you know, when you go into a natural area, you go into a forest or something like that, I really think that you can feel a different energy to the place. And I know some of you will think this is kind of hokey, but you know, I don't. I really think it's true. I think there's been enough science to show this, and from my own personal experiences, I do believe it to be true. So aside from cleaning up your air, I think it also really cleans up the energy in your house. So you know, take that how you will, but that's how I see it, and I really believe it's true. So anyways, I hope this helped. I strongly encourage you to go get some plants. It's a great thing to get into, a great little hobby. It really is very simple. Just give it a try, give it a little bit of care, and you should see some great results and some great benefits.